right, here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Boom! And welcome to the Big Honker Podcast, brought to you by Boss Shot Shells. I'm Jeff Stanfield with the world famous Andy Shaver.
Hunting show season's coming up. July into August. Hope to see everybody out there. Blah, blah, blah. It's here. It's here, basically.
With us today, the world famous Mr. Ramsey Russell with the coolest backdrop I've seen in a long time. How you doing, Ramsey?
I'm good, man. Good to be here. Glad to see y'all again.
Season never stops for you. You know, I always kind of considered the 4th of July to be the time that we turn the page here and start getting excited about hunting season. But the way you've got it scheduled, you're always in go mode.
Man, if I'm lucky. You know, this will be the first 4th of July that I've been home maybe in 10 years.
Really?
I really can't even remember the last time I was home 4th of July. It's duck season somewhere in the southern hemisphere.
It is.
And I just got back. Matter of fact, when we were texting a few days ago, I was sitting in the middle of a pigeon hunt down in Argentina and knew I was going to be home. I was down there for 5 weeks and finally made it back home in time for the holidays. And I'm going to be home for 10 weeks, not including the shows and the expos and fishing trips, but I'm going to be home. You know, and I'm glad to be off the road for just a little bit. According to my Hunt Proof app, I have logged 191 hunts since September 1st.
Wow.
And I'm ready for a break. Yeah, I'm ready for a break.
It's got to be so good sleeping in your own bed. I was in Costa Rica for a week, and getting home to the sheets and the bed and the pillow like you like it, there's no other feeling than that.
Unbelievable, man. It's unbelievable to be sleeping in your own bed. And that's the thing about it is, you know, you talk about how many days you've been hunting, but that doesn't take into account all the days of travel and in between and getting there and getting back. I mean, it's just on the road too dang much. But I wouldn't swap lives with anybody.
No. If you love what you do, I mean, that's the goal here in America, is find something that you're passionate about and make it a career. Well,
I used to say I'd swap lives with Tiger Woods back in the day, and then his wife beat him with the golf club. And I thought, I don't know about that shit. I would swap checking accounts with him still, but other than that, I don't know. Where is on the? Hold on. Well, I'm going to rephrase this. The culture with Americans overseas, I don't think it's changed much. The media tries to make it out to be some major deal. Did you see a lot of backlash in South America about being an American this time?
Not at all. Not at all. I don't see backlash anywhere traveling. But boy, you better believe that the rest of the world does not see Fox News. They only see CNN talking points. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And Trump, love him or hate him, I mean, Trump gives the world a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
There's always a headline.
We were down in Mexico this year, and there was a client that had come from Denmark in camp with us. And as we were just sitting there talking one night at dinner, he's like, man, I have never heard anybody in the world talk about politics like Americans. And somebody said, well, what do you think of America? What do you think of Trump and politics, stuff like that? And maybe we'd all forgotten, but he says, you mean besides the fact Trump wants Greenland? You know, he said, I guess he's okay. But anyway, I was down in Australia maybe a couple of years ago, and we were riding in the back of a truck going Cape bear and goose hunting, and one of the guys got to talking politics, you know, got to ask me a question, something about something, you know, and I just kind of shrugged it off. I knew better. And he made another pass at it, so I started. And his buddy elbowed him and said, I told you don't ask these Yanks about politics. And I said, oh, that cat's out of the effing bag, dude. Yeah. Y'all brought this subject up. Now let's talk about it. And I mean, you know, I bristle at the fact, love him, hate him, agree with all his policies or not. You know, I just bristle at the fact that anybody else in this, with some of the stuff I see, I love Australia. But, you know, they got to do stuff like seat belt their dog on the back seat, or they'll get cited a animal cruelty violation.
Wow.
It's a little too far out there for me. You know, they burned all their semi-automatic firearms. They've got a lot of just very progressive politics, and I just bristle at the fact that they criticize my way of life here in America. Man, yeah. I'm very, very thankful to enjoy the freedoms that we do. You know, we really do. We really are, man. we really are blessed here in America. You better believe we are.
100%. I think everybody needs to travel. I think everybody needs to go see the world and just see how exactly blessed you are. Just like you said. I mean, just the little things that we take for granted. Now, with a semi-automatic weapon ban like that, is your shotgun grandfathered in? Like, can you take?
No, hell no,
So
man. I mean, we've all seen. Andy, I know you've seen that picture that's circulated over the years. It is like a 10-story building, mountain-size collection of guns, Remingtons and Benellis and Brownings and everything, semi-automatics piled up, going into like a metal compress or something. That was freaking Australia.
Yeah.
And they offered like a buyback, a voluntold kind of buyback or something, and a lot of people did it. They're like, oh man, well, it ain't that bad. I'll get a credit for it and I can go buy a new gun. It'll be a 2-shooter, be fine. But now I think a lot of the people I talk to look back and go, what the heck were we thinking, man?
Mm-hmm.
That makes no sense. I've always said in terms of all these firearm laws that they're trying to legislate that we see exacerbated in the media, about firearms and murders and stuff like that. Look, here's an idea. Instead of banning firearms, let's ban murder. Let's just make murder illegal and enforce it. How about that? You know what I'm saying? Because if we don't have guns, what are we going to use? Knives, clubs, sticks? What did cavemen use? Yeah. Rocks.
Yeah, they'll figure out a way.
Come on, murder's murder. And like I say, I'm thankful to live in America and have the economic benefit and everything else that we have in America. We do. So, and none of my friends, and I've got a lot of friends and associates in Canada, lots of be them outfitters or buddies or just fishing buddies, duck hunting buddies. I mean, lots and lots of them. And I haven't heard them critical about Trump, but we all saw the furor. Mm-hmm. Back just a couple of months ago about Canada. And, it was so crazy reading in social media some of the comments coming out of Canada about America and about Trump. Never mind the fact that since Trump was elected, they threw another 25% carbon tax on Canadians. So now they're paying 45% carbon tax. It's kind of like California on steroids. You know what I'm saying? Their energy policy is bizarre. And it's very woke and it's very progressive. And I mean, a lot of the Western Canadians that I knew, they're just like Texans and Deep South are American conservatives. They live close to the land, they farm, they're not in that big city of Toronto or Ottawa or something. They're just regular folks, and they don't like a lot of that liberal policy either. They hated Trudeau.
We've got a couple of. We got more than a couple. We've got a lot of listeners around the Toronto area, and I get messages from a lot of times, and they 99% of the time agree on everything the same thing we think. They think just like, I think the same. But I met a guy in Mexico, I believe, that was from Canada, and he was bitching about Trump. Well, he's not doing us any good, blah, blah, blah. I said, whoa, hold on, buddy. We elected him to be the president of the United States. He's there for our best interest, not yours.
That's right.
I hate to tell you that. I'm not being rude, but he's our president, not yours.
That's
you
right.
don't hear me bitching about Trudeau doing anything to America. I think Trudeau's a freaking total idiot, but whatever he does, that's y'all's deal, not ours. So Trump's our president, not yours. You can have Joe Biden. We'll send him to you, but we got Trump as our president.
Isn't it crazy that other countries like that are so vocal and critical about our politics instead of their own?
Yeah, I couldn't even. I guess Merkel is the prime minister or president of Germany. Maybe is she gone or is he gone? Whatever. I don't know.
I know.
I don't give two shits. I promise you right now, you can go to Switzerland, and I'm assuming whoever's the prime minister or whatever the hell it is of Switzerland, you can go to Switzerland and you could talk to 10 people on the street, and 7 of them could tell you who the president of the United States is or more. But I can promise you could go to downtown New York to the most affluent neighborhood in the world and say, who is the prime minister of Switzerland? And there ain't nobody can tell you who the hell that is.
No, nobody knows. Nobody knows. And one thing I will tell you that was so interesting is back this fall, I hunted 6 Canadian provinces, driving that old black truck down the roads, and going at it. And I was shocked at how many Trump 2024 signs I saw big flags waving over farms or in front yards or painted on hay bales and barns, or they got a real what I call a garage culture up north. They turn those garages into bars. Just a good place to go watch sports and drink beer after a long day. And you walk in and there's Trump signs. And I finally asked somebody, man, what do you care about my American president? And one of them said, well, I hope he'll get rid of this son of a bitch we got in power. Trudeau. And he did. God dog, within 2 weeks, Trudeau's gone.
Yeah, he was out.
But they've got a real, and I don't pretend to understand anybody else's politics, but their parliamentary system I don't understand, except I got a vague sense, and I'm sure somebody will comment and clear us up on this, but they don't vote for their prime minister. They vote for like the representatives, and then those representatives get together and appoint a prime minister. So it'd be like if we voted in a House or a Senate, they got together and decided who was going to be president. That's the best I understand their politics. But from what I understand, and I don't know who these people are, but Trudeau seemed to be way too far left for me. And they just basically took in somebody it's just Trudeau part two, and I don't know that a lot of Western Canadians agree with that. But what I saw during the furor of it all with Trump, poking the bear like he does, is everybody just incensed about American politics because the media was generating all this stuff that Trump was saying, never mind the fact that we just doubled your carbon tax.
Right.
Yeah, they're too stupid to see.
Let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about the fact you went from paying 25% carbon tax to 45% carbon tax. Let's talk about Trump, him going to make us a state. That's crazy. But it's gaslighting at its finest. You know what I'm saying? And that's what you see so much of in all politics. It's just this gaslighting narrative. All this smoke and mirrors, but don't look at the real issues that's going on behind us.
In America, the good places to live are all voting red. Everywhere you go. Yeah. I don't care if you can go to New York City and you can get outside of New York City 30 miles and you start getting into the Adirondacks and everybody thinks just like you do, all the way to the Canadian border. You can get outside of Philadelphia just a little bit. You can get outside of New Jersey, and New Jersey's going to flip red before long anyways, but you don't take long as soon as you get to where people work and pay taxes and there's not a lot of government free money and shit, those people all want the same things that we want in West Texas and in the South and everywhere else. So,
but with very, very few exceptions, and that's one of the biggest revelations of a lot of travel. Like Andy said, everybody ought to travel and see the world outside their own backyard, just to get an appreciation for what we have right here at home. But one of the biggest realizations I ever had in meeting so many people of races and colors and religions and economic backgrounds and all this different stuff around the world is that I would say that 90% of humanity is just like us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Everybody's kind of the same. You just got these 10% outliers. Maybe it's radical Islam or maybe it's freaking Antifa. I don't know. You got these radical outliers that but I think everybody else just wants to live life and be happy and come home to their family and make a living. You know what I'm saying? I think that's what all people want to be. And I've seen that just worldwide.
When you hunt all over and you've hunted some of the Muslim countries, when you hunt these Muslim places, now you're going to be hunting in the nicest places with the wealthiest Muslim guys. They have a major system there where it's uber wealthy and the other people are just dirt poor. Is that correct?
Some of the countries I've been to, that is correct. Yep.
So do you feel uncomfortable there? Because Muslims make me nervous, and it's just because I'm an American and that's the way I stereotype them. But when you're over there, have you met a lot of Muslims that are kind, nice people, or do you always edgy around them?
All of them I've met are. All of them I've met are just, again, just simple people. They but now, it's like you've always been told, don't talk politics and religion.
Right.
Never more is that rule abided than in a country like Pakistan. I'm there to duck hunt. I'm not going to talk politics or religion. And
you respect their ways.
Honestly, I've never felt unsafe or uncomfortable around them. The country we mostly go to that is Islam is Azerbaijan. But Russia occupied them for decades, since about around World War II until I think the Reagan or Daddy Bush administration, somewhere in that era, did they get their independence. And first thing Russia did was put the quietus on radical Islam, because religion can be a form of politics. And so I kind of describe them, even though they are Muslim, I kind of describe them in layman terms as a back row Methodist. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You hear the music, but you don't see anybody bowing down or praying 5 times a day. They don't do all that kind of stuff that I've seen. But then at the same time, you can go to a grocery store and buy liquor, and that's kind of different for a Muslim country. But then again, when I was in Pakistan, I spent a week there and want to go back. I've reached out to my contacts over there. I'd like to go back. I'd like to film it. It was such an amazing experience. The people, I've never been the benefit of such generous hospitality as it was right there. But man, it was the most culturally different type experience I'd ever been on because man, it's like I got in an argument with our translator. He was saying there's no poverty in Pakistan. There's 97% literacy. And man, I'm looking around, we show at the boat ramp, there was 120 servants waiting on us. And I'd take off down the levee with 7, and one was a little boy about belly button high, and the other one was a very old man. I don't know, he could have been 70, could have been 110. That's hard to say, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there was all these little steps in between, and they were carrying our stuff and doing our stuff, and the old man was obviously kind of head. He'd whisper something in their language, and boom, they'd hide, and just turn invisible. Or I'd sailed a duck one time way out on the horizon, and he said something, and one of the little boys wearing the little colorful scrub-looking clothes took off. I didn't see him for an hour and a half till he come back with that duck.
Wow.
And it was just really, really something else. And you drive by and you see women. You didn't see nothing but their eyes with the mask and stuff on, but you'd see them scrubbing in these squatted little ditches, scrubbing their clothes. You drive by these little mud hut homes without windows, and if you caught a glimpse inside, you saw there was no furniture, and which I just remember everybody I saw, all the locals, like the servants, they could squat. Now, I can squat to go tie my shoe, but I'm talking, when I say squat, their knees were up over their heads, and they could maintain that posture for hours. Mm. Because they don't have furniture to sit on. Mm-hmm. And that's the only way they've ever sat.
Yeah.
And I just, the idea that there was no poverty, man, I haven't seen poverty under a Dallas interstate like what I saw with homeless people than what I saw in Pakistan. and then what was so bizarre is, like, we were all staying, the guests were staying in this beautiful apartment. And man, and just food. Man, these servants were bringing food in like we were at Cleopatra and Anthony or something. Man, it was just unbelievable. These people coming in with just tables and tables and tables and tables of food that nobody was eating. And one time I was stepping out of the shower because it was hotter than Hades there, even in December. And had gone hunting, it was hotter than heck. And I went and took a shower with the towel drying off. The door opens up, and here comes the servant walking around with this platter of food. I'm like, whoa, man, watch out. And I put a towel around me and kind of walked him out, shut the door. And it kept happening. And one time I'm literally sitting on the toilet texting, boom, opens the door. Here comes a guy with a platter of food. I'm like, get the F-bomb out of here. What are you doing? And I said something. I went down and found my translator. I said, look, what is up with these people and the food? He said, I said, dude, tell them to knock.
Right.
He said, I don't understand. I said, it's nothing to understand, Kyder. Tell them to knock. Just knock on the door. and don't come in unless somebody says come in. And just lay the food down and forget about it. And he's like, I don't understand. I said, Kaiser, what in the heck is to understand? And he says, Ramsey, they're invisible. I said, what do you mean they're invisible? He said, they're servants. They don't count. They're carpet. And that's when I realized, boom, those 120 people out there and a whole lot of people, all their families, and all those people outside the walls of that palace, they didn't count.
They didn't count.
That's why there's 97% literacy.
Right.
And when I walked back out to the blind that day, I looked at the old man who was sitting there with me, just, anything I wanted, he was just there at my beck and call. And I looked at the little boy and I realized that old man was a little boy one time, and his daddy was a little boy, and that little boy's going to be the old man one day, and it's just going to go on forever. And I told this story down in Louisiana one time. My buddy Dale Borland's brother was there. Dale Borland's brother was a 3-star general back during the Daddy Bush Desert Storm. And he heard that story, and he said, I can't believe you figured that out. He said, Ramsey, there's more slavery on Earth today than has ever existed, and half of them are Packies. And you're right, they don't count.
Wow.
That's crazy, isn't
wow.
it? I mean, that's so far out of the American comfort zone. You know what I'm saying? It's just the stuff you see. But nonetheless, from the servants to my host, like I say before, I've never received such generous hospitality in my life. It was unbelievable how nice. But we didn't talk politics and religion.
Could you communicate with them at all, the slaves or servants?
No,
so they didn't
just
understand
hand motions or whatever like that. You know what I'm saying? Just stuff like that. Some of the little things I remember is they would vocally say something in their language about don't shoot whatever, a non-species, a non-game, because in their religion, if they're going to kill it and eat it and use it, that's one thing, but they just didn't want to shoot something that, just to kill it. And that's why, because of that commitment, that respect like that, that's why that little boy wouldn't come back without that duck, because he didn't want it to be just a needless death or something. And, but here's the crazy thing. I'm sitting there minding my own business on the levee, and here comes this big white pelican. I mean, you can see him a mile off, and they started to indicate, shoot, and I'm like, I'm not about that. And man, the bird got over, bam, I shot, he hit the water, they run out there, they grabbed him, they pulled him into the shade. I'm sitting there thinking, surely to gosh, they're not going to eat a pelican. I mean, I can't imagine eating something like that. And what they do with it is they use its oil, that oil gland, they use it for like ointments, and for the rheumatoid and different ailments they got. So they use stuff like that. It was just it was one of the most interesting things I've ever been on. That's all I can say. It was one of the most interesting. Now here's I mean, it's on a good note, because there was one of the finest Scotch collections I've ever partaken available to us, and in the Islamic State of Pakistan. And one day I was going to get a drink, and there were a lot of Paki guests in too. One of them owned 5 hospitals in America. Very prominent guy. And I'm up there making a drink or doing something, and one of the guys, they all spoke English, and one of them said, you're from Mississippi? I go, yeah, I'm from Mississippi. He said, well, that is right next to Louisiana. Do you know Duck Commander? And before I could say something, somebody goes, oh, Duck Commander. And I'm sitting there having my drink, watching 5 or 6 of these Packies talk about Duck Dynasty. And who do you think their favorite character was? Uncle Si.
Everybody loves Si.
And I'm sitting there watching, and halfway across the world in the Islamic State of Pakistan, listening to Pakistanis tell Uncle Si stories. Isn't that crazy?
Small world. What was the? Have you hunted in India?
No, I haven't. I've not hunted in India, and I don't see myself really. I don't think there is any hunting in India, and I think talking to some friends that have been. Man, India is a pretty poor and destitute and bad and nasty country. To hear them say it, but if you fly into the cities and stuff, but then you got the Taj Mahal, and you've got some of these bioreserves where the tigers are. That are supposed to be some of the most unspoiled wilderness on earth. And I've talked to people about maybe going and just being a tourist for a week, because there is no hunting. But now, India, after World War II, pre-World War II, Great Britain, United Kingdom, they had this massive colonial empire that stretched, everywhere.
Yeah.
To include India.
I think they owned 80% of the world at one time.
Something like that. And after World War II, their cities were in such disarray because of Hitler's bombs. They had to scale back on the budget and divest themselves of some of those holdings to go back and build the home base. And one of their last activities in India was negotiating a treaty between the Hindus and the Muslims. And I'm terrible with numbers, but I swear I think it was somewhere around 1970 or somewhere in the early 1970s. they carved off the modern day country of Pakistan, which was India. They carved it off and dedicated it to the Muslims. And so the Muslim,
they hate each other.
Went to Pakistan and the Hindu state in modern day India. How I understood it.
They absolutely hate each other too. My question about India was, I follow a couple Instagram reels of street food in India. Ooh. You have to be a brave person to eat anything in India on the street. I don't know that I would want to stay at the Four Seasons in India.
They're cooking it with their hands and feet, basically.
Oh, and dirty and washed. One guy was scratching his ball sack and was cooking for people with his hands and stuff. And
it gets worse than that, boys. I tell you, kind of what one of the rules is when you're in that part of the world is you don't shake. They don't shake hands.
Yeah,
it's not a part of their cultural fabric. And they don't shake hands because they wipe. Some of those servants, they wipe with one hand and eat with the other. Mm-hmm. And so you got to eat. And but I was told, and the best advice I ever got, that's really pretty smart advice when you start getting off the beaten path, is don't eat the salad and don't eat dairy products. And because the salad, you don't know what it was washed or if it was washed, right? And I'm telling you, like the guy we were hunting with, the feudal lord that we were hunting with, he was a very prominent, like a very prominent person within that area. And he brought water to the people. And I mean by water, he brought a water well that you can, water coming out, and people can get clear, potable water. And which is not to say that everybody has access to that. And man, it was hotter than blue blazes. And one day I came in, and they had just, 1,000 square foot of dishes laid out for us, and in the shade. It was comfortable, and I saw this salad, and man, it looked so good. And I made the fatal mistake of trying it, and it was delicious. It was a great salad. It was cold, and it was tasty, and it was just what I needed in that 100-some degree weather. And I ate a couple of bowls of it. And somebody else said, "Man, was that?" I said, "Man, it's delicious. I can't believe how good it is." 3 of us ate it. 3 of us. WebMD says I had amoebic dysentery, and if it wasn't amoebic dysentery, it was dang close, son. It was the sickest I've ever been, green around the gills sick, within hours of eating that thing. And but you just don't eat salad, and you don't eat dairy product, and you just try to stay, like you say, street. I wouldn't eat street food anywhere hardly, just because you don't know. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes it may just be that, the locals can drink. Like I've been in some remote areas of Argentina, just out, they're drinking well water or something, and they can drink it because their body's got their gut flora is accustomed to whatever's biomes are in that stuff, and ours aren't, and it'll hurt you, man.
Yeah. That's how it was in Costa Rica. I don't know how the water situation is, but I only drank water it fills out of a bottle.
That's very safe, but you got to worry about.
But then you got to worry about
ice. Guy, I love ice. I can't stand a drink unless it's cold. And we was in Mexico a couple years ago, and a lady with us had a drink, and she had some ice in it, like a pina colada or something, and she had a long flight home.
I bet she did.
Well, no, she drank it out of the cooler on a tour.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay, yeah. The local guys that made their own ice at home, I guess, and saved some money, but. That street food stuff. That's what I love hearing. Your stories where you eating and the food and stuff. So what are we eating when we're in Pakistan? You said they got all this spread. Is it all lamb? I'm sure they're not eating no beef.
Or there was a little duck. I remember I ate it because it seemed to be grilled, and there was lamb and goat and beef, and
they did have beef.
I couldn't tell you, man. I will say this: I haven't eaten curry since then. After getting that amoebic dysentery and eating some of that food, and, they were so generous and so hospitable, so accommodating. But it just wasn't in my wheelhouse for flavors.
Yeah.
So I guess Pepto-Bismol and Alka-Seltzer are in your travel bag at all time.
Man, I tell you what, I've kicked it on up to Cipro and some of these other stuff.
Cipro, that's some serious shit.
I never leave home without some of these things.
Is there a way out for some of these servants like you were talking about? Like, is there ever going to be a way for them to overcome the servant statute? I hate
to say it, but it may just be die.
That's it.
Be a good soccer player.
They were such nice people. They were such, but they didn't have they were the one segment of people I've ever met that when I think back, I don't remember them as having like this human dignity. You know what I'm saying? I just don't think, I think they were born and they lived to serve others and stuff like that. It was disturbing at a level. I'm not going to lie to you. It was a tad disturbing. I don't think they've got a way out. You know, they're just born into it and they live into it. And you know, and where it really gets weird is I accept it because who am I, an American that grew up how I did, to judge them?
Right.
I don't live in Pakistan. I don't live in their world. It may be that given the alternative, that's a great life for them.
Right. Yeah. You know, I just having kids, everything just kind of changes in your mind. And, you know, you got a 10 and a 6-year-old, and I'm sure that young boy that was with you on that levee that day was probably somewhere right in that age range. You know what I mean? And just, it would hurt me as a father looking into my kid's eyes, knowing that this is as good as it's going to get.
Yeah, no, I mean, unless you didn't know any better.
Unless you didn't know any better.
No, saying, here's another kind of related but different. One time we were in Mongolia and north of China, and you know, Genghis Khan, you know, that kind of where he's from. That's why they built the wall of China. Yeah, we went in spring to hunt some species and do some stuff during their spring season. We were supposed to go this past year, but they didn't. The government didn't authorize the spring season. They had quotas on some of these birds. So we didn't go. And boy, it was just wild because it's like there's 3 million people in this country, 33 million head of livestock, not a strand of barbed wire. And you know, they graze cattle and sheep and goats and yaks and camels and just all kinds of critters, you know, to just go through this stuff. And they're kind of nomadic. A lot of these people still are. And that's why you don't drive at night, because there's no barbed wire. And you just drive down these tire tracks forever. Just if you've ever been out to like mountainous or grassland type mountain Utah, that's what it reminded me of. It's just like you can see 50 miles across this just, I don't know, this tundra. And tire tracks were driving, and then you round this little valley, and there's this yurt, you know, a girt they call it. It's just this round felt wall house, you know, and to this day there will be a couple of horses tethered, you know, out front. And you walk inside one, and we slept in them, you know. And it got so freaking cold in April that I would go to sleep under so many blankets I couldn't roll over in my sleep. If I went to sleep on my stomach, that's where I was at night. It was 5 pounds of blankets on top of me and more. And when you'd hear this little firebox rattling in the morning. He's fixing to make a fire. And what I learned they've got fire making skills. Once he lights that firebox out, you better be up and gone before it hooks up, because it's gonna run you out of there. It's so hot inside those felt walls. But what I never will forget is seeing on outside, just in the middle of BFE nowhere, is middle of nowhere as exists on Earth today. This little family girl sitting, got to be 20 miles from the nearest neighbor, and on the outside of it, they had a satellite watching TV. And I'm thinking, that if you live like that,
yeah,
what must it be like seeing Los Angeles or anywhere, just watching TV and seeing how other people live with cars and air conditioning and high rises. I mean, I wondered, you know, when I would meet some of these people, you know, I wondered if they believe it's real, or they just kind of look at it like Star Trek.
Right. Yeah.
How I mean, it's so different than how they live.
Yeah. It's like science fiction to them. There's no way
it's got to be. It's got to be.
Yeah. What was Mazatlan like? Because during this year, we got some reports that things were a little bit kind of topsy-turvy with the cartel down there. Did you see any of that, or was that just sensationalization on America's part?
I don't. Man, you better believe the cartel is alive and real. It's a multi-trillion-dollar business, best I can estimate, to feed the American drug habit. And, you know, I don't know that person or persons in our own government, and I mean those deep, dark agencies that need cash, because Congress ain't going to approve some of their activities. Maybe they're involved with it, but I've never seen anything like that. The most disturbing thing for Mazatlan for us this year was just the fact that it was the worst drought since 1964. And I got news. I mean, of course, I keep up with the weather everywhere, but they're getting a lot of rain now to fill that water back up. But But other than that, we didn't see anything like that. I did see an email going around that one of the hunts had been canceled because, cartel activities and everything else. And I just know that to be bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
But because I know who. Now that may be what that guy who was saying, who was booking those hunts, was saying, because that's what he was told. But I know that the outfitter he was dealing with did not have any UMAs, did not have any properties to hunt. And I just know that from being behind the scenes with my own people and having heard the rumors and just some run-ins they've had with that other outfit. So I think a lot of that was BS. I just really do. Mexico is a big, big area. And we spend a lot of time in Mexico, a whole lot of time in Mexico. And it's hard to believe that the past 22 years, as much time as I've spent, not just in Mazatlan, but all those little dirt road towns around it, or even 2 hours south in the next province, or 6 hours north in the other province, all these little communities. It's just hard to believe that I've never had a run in.
Yeah.
That nobody's had a run in. And I really think, as it was explained to me, I got to tell you this story. So one day I'm out in this little tiny village, and we're scouting. I go down a few days early before a TV show because, we Americans want waterfowl to present themselves, right? You're going out and setting up for your clients, Andy. You get the wind at your back, get the decoys right, put a little pocket here and there to get the bird to present themselves.
Yeah.
And outside of America, not everybody thinks that way. You know what I'm saying? So I wanted to go look and say, okay, if I'm going to bring a cameraman in, we need the lighting good, we need the wind good, we need cover. I need to be hidden, he needs to be hidden. Let's go take a look at all this. So we go down early to scout. We're going to do a Mexican duck hunt. And during the planting season, because they go out and they drill all this wheat in the Yaqui Valley, then they gravity feed the water over it, and the water runs all the way down slope and begins to collect in these little ephemeral wetlands that are full of coffee weed, and where the ducks can roost and have lots of cover. But then they'll fly off into these muddy fields, and they'll go right down those wheat furrows and eat that wheat till their gullets are full. And they'll fly off into the little pothole and lay up, and that's what the plan. So we're going to hunt these birds. And I go down there, and I've got a driver that speaks Spanglish and a boat captain that doesn't, and we're in the truck together. We're going out, and we drove to this little dirt road community, and he goes, Ramsey, he's asking if you like turtle soup. I'm like, yeah, I like turtle soup, man. That'd be good. He said, all right, we'll stop back here in this community and we'll have some for lunch. We'll come to find out it wasn't about the turtle soup. It was about the boy being sweet on the girl that cooks turtle soup. That's a whole other story. And so we go and scout, we do our things, we come back, and by restaurant, what he meant, it was like a dirt road town, no red lights, no nothing. And we walk through the front yard, go to the back patio, it's in the shade, there's a couple of tables set up. You look through the kitchen door, and there's the grandmama, the mama, and the daughter, and whomever else cooking. And they bring out these bowls of turtle soup. We're eating turtle soup. And as I'm eating turtle soup, I'm thinking to myself, I was surprised. Maybe there's snapping turtles. I've never seen snapping turtles or snapping turtle habitat down here. And I have seen some of those red ear sliders, but surely they're not eating red ear sliders. Although in Guatemala, they do eat those freaking things. And as I'm eating, I'm just looking around. I see them pangos that all them commercial fishermen are out there on the bays running. And I said, well, surely to God, we're not eating endangered sea turtle. So I asked my driver, who asked a girl, who says, yeah. We don't target them. We're not out there trying to catch endangered sea turtles, but they get in the net, so we eat them.
Just what we're getting.
And about this time, this little man comes up. This little man walks up, and I'll just describe him as like a Mexican Albert Einstein looking guy with little khakis and a press shirt and little straw fedora. And he sits down, and he puts his hand on the table, and they all start yammering in Spanish. And I tune out because I don't speak fluent Spanish, especially when they speak it like a machine gun.
Yeah.
I can't understand that. So I'm like Charlie Brown, listening, in the background. And finally, he pokes me and says, hey, he's asking you a question. And I look up at the old man, and the question was, are you scared of cartels here? And man, I put my spoon down, and I looked at him. I said, should I be?
Mm-hmm.
Should I be scared? Because it hadn't crossed my mind in all the years running around that I should be worried about cartels. And he starts telling this story in Spanish that's being interpreted to me that the cartels are live and real. And that, they want to be, they're running a big business. billions and just lots and lots and lots of zeros involved, highly illegal, and they want to do so discreetly, and they want to do so under the radar, and they don't want attention to themselves, and so they move off into remote areas to conduct their business, and how, but since Adam and Eve, evil has existed in people. How even in the poorest and most rural communities on earth, there's thieves and murderers and pedophiles and rapists and muggers. And man, I'm listening intently as this story's being told to me.
Yeah.
And I forgot all about that turtle soup. and then he held up his index finger, but he says, in this community, because they don't want attention drawn on them. They don't want any police. They don't want nobody accidentally stumbling upon their business.
Right.
He says for this reason, that there's a problem. Somebody breaking into houses, somebody robbing grandmothers. One day they wake up and that person's just gone. He said our problem just disappears. And that's when he held up his finger and he said, and in that way the cartel is our protectorate.
Right.
He was
Dude, let that sink in. I mean, what my first thought was? Send them sons of bitches to Jackson, Mississippi, and fix some of the problems that the police or the politicians won't. Look, people, as a proud American, the whole freaking world watched Minneapolis burn to the freaking ground while the politicians and the police and the mayor sat with their hands in their pockets. That would never happen in Mexico. Guys,
Right.
that would never, ever, ever. It would be a foot race between the police, the military, and the cartel to get rid of them.
Right.
That's kind of like the El Chapo deal. They loved El Chapo. Was it El Chapo that was in Colombia, or what was the guy's name in El Chapo that lived at Las Palmas? The famous drug cartel guy.
That was El Chapo in Sinaloa.
No, Escobar in Colombia.
Escobar, okay, down in Colombia.
They absolutely loved him. He was like Robin Hood. He built hospitals. He did all kinds. But if you screwed him over, got in a business deal with him, he'd cut your throat and heartbeat and kill you. But he done a lot of good, and there was protection for those people. So there's a good and bad to it. So I'm assuming that's that way everywhere.
What I tell people that go to Mexico is, I just don't think there's anything to worry about, especially as an American citizen, especially with Donald Trump in power, who's already got an axe to grind because, borrowing from that little old man's story about them wanting to be discreet, not wanting profile, boy, let an American tourist accidentally get hurt, and there's going to be a whole lot of scrutiny. Somebody's going to have to answer for it. It's going to start an international scandal. Somebody is going to have to look into it, and there's going to have to be answers. And I think that's why they don't. I just think there's a hard and fast rule: don't harm American tourists. We've seen the headlines. I remember 3-4 years ago, some Mormon family got machine gun on the country road. Bullshit. They were selling drugs, dude.
Right.
They may have been Mormon, but they weren't practicing Mormon. They were selling drugs, and they weren't associated with no gang or nothing. They were just free range and trying to get a discount. You heard about those 2 girls from Atlanta down on the border, that got killed. They were down there just going to get some bullshit. They were down there selling drugs. They were down there to sticking their beak where it didn't belong. And I just don't think that the average American tourist, y'all go to Mexico. I go to Mexico. Man, you get on a plane going to Mazatlan, there's 500 gringos,
Right.
Heading down to Mexico to enjoy the vacation. And when you get on a plane coming back, there's 500 gringos with sunburns coming back, haven't had a good time. There's no problem. As long as you're not down there looking for trouble.
Yeah.
If you're down there just being a tourist, I think it's fine.
I've never been scared in Mexico that I can think of, but I have in Los Angeles, and I have in Atlanta, and I have in
Chicago,
Memphis,
and Jackson, Mississippi, and Dallas, Texas. I mean,
I don't stop in Dallas. Like if we're coming back from Louisiana on I-20, I don't stop and get gas at night until I get to Buc-ee's on the other side of Fort Worth to Fort Worth. So I feel safe there.
Yep.
Fill up before, fill up after. That's the same way when we went to that Shin Fest. We had to go through Little Rock, and I got pulled over for speeding, and I was kind of getting in a pinch for gas, and I asked the officer, like, hey, is there a place before Little Rock that we can get gas? And he's like, yeah, do not stop because it was in the middle of the night, and he's like, do not stop in Little Rock, Arkansas in the middle of the night. He said, you either get a hotel room on this side or the other side, but don't stop
That's
there.
right.
So,
That's right. We got a lot of dangerous places in America, and you know, there are countries that put, you know, travel advisories on America because, you know, because of the mass shootings or what the riots in LA right now. There's travel advisories about traveling to LA if you're a European or a Canadian. You know, they're saying don't go there. It's very, very dangerous right now. That's right here in America.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, so.
And that's how they think. You were in a cab, weren't you, Jeff? Somewhere in Mexico, maybe, and like your cab driver basically thought that everything going on in Minneapolis was just happening everywhere.
Yeah, I've had that happen a couple of times down there.
Like,
all they do is watch the news.
Everybody's getting shot in America right now.
Yeah, and then I had a Canadian Border Patrol agent going into Niagara Falls a couple of years ago. He goes, "Oh, I feel sorry for you living in Texas." That's an automatic wrong thing to say to a Texan. I go, why? What's the problem with Texas? We all just have school shootings down there every freaking day.
It was right after Uvalde.
I go, no, we don't. I said, we don't have that many school shootings. I said, the media just portrays it all the time. I said, you know what else we don't have in Texas? A bunch of dumbasses running up and down our streets burning shit up because we'll shoot them.
That's right.
And but that was his deal. So yeah, I was in Mexico one time when a guy thought that was everywhere, and then I had a conversation with someone from England, and it was the same way with them too. They watch CNN, like you said. They don't know what's going on.
Well, I'm happiest. I am happiest and more at peace when I don't watch the news.
100%.
You know, and it's like, but if you watch the news or you don't, we all know that there's a bunch of idiots running around right now, no king or whatever. You know. And I mean, but that's one thing when you travel around the world, you know, when you go to Mexico, when you go to Argentina, when you go to Uruguay, when you go to anywhere, Australia, when you go anywhere, people have got such national pride.
Yeah.
And for some reason, our media is portraying something to the contrary here in America, where everybody I know is red, white, and blue, God bless American, you know? I don't know these crazy folks that they're showing on TVs.
What we've had this discussion a couple times. Where would be, you've traveled all over the world. If you had to pack up and leave America, where would be the place that you would go? Where's like that city on the hill that you can think of?
Man, I don't think I have one. I would hate to leave the great state of Mississippi. I really do. I was born and raised here. I was born in America. I love my country. I do spend a lot of time down in Argentina. I like the food. I like the people. I like the culture. I like the duck hunting. You know what I'm saying? But I don't want to live anywhere on earth but right here in America. I don't think I really have a foreign country city on the hill I'd like to go. And it'd blow your mind. But I will say that last fall, I got invited to go to the United Kingdom. I hunted in England and Wales. For 8 days. We shot a punt gun. Good God, that was insane. I went over there to shoot pink-footed geese, and we set the full moon dates because they hunt them at night.
Right.
We got out to the field about 4:00 in the afternoon. They didn't start coming in off the salt water until about 9:00 at night, and that moon was bright and clear, and it was crazy moonlighting those birds like that, and but we went out to shoot a punt gun, and I first off, I didn't know it took an hour and a half to get everything put together. I mean, it's like loading the cannon and getting everything ready. It took a while. And then we go out in the water, and the tide is wrong, the wind is wrong. You know, history makes us think that shooting a punt gun, just going out kaboom and killing 100. Heck no, man. It is Napoleon-era technology. It is a cannon. And which shoots a big old load, but there's a lot that comes with that. And, you know, you get the gun right, and then you get the heck out of the way because all that recoil is going to stretch those ropes coming back at you. And so we did go and shoot it. And somebody in social media did write me and asked me, said, was that you that shot yesterday? And I looked up his community. He was 3 miles away.
Wow.
But anyway, just jumping around and meeting the people and seeing it and everything else, man, I felt in love in a way that I did not know humanly possible with that old world. I really, my wife asked me when I about midway through the trip, she said, "Are you coming home?" I said, "I don't want to. I can't believe it, but I love it over here." I absolutely loved it over there. I love the people and the culture and the country and just everything about it. I really, really, truly had such a great time and hope to go back. I'm supposed to go back this year, early February. There's 4 dozen punt gunners, I guess, in the world, and they're all in the United Kingdom. And my host introduced me to the grand poobah of them all, this old guy. I guess he's in his 70s, that's been doing it since forever. And he said, if you're going to come back over, we got to get the tides right. Mm-hmm. And hopefully when you show up, and there's no guarantee, but hopefully when you show up, the tides are going to be right. So hopefully the wind is right. And say we don't got a lot of wind, because you're in this real shallow boat. And the gun's mounted to the front, and I'm going to be laying in the front kind of prone, and we'll both be paddling till we start getting real close. And then my navigator will be on his back looking up at the sky with 2 little short paddles. He'll be kind of like turtle foot crawling out the side of the boat looking up at the sky, and I'll be tapping his right foot to get the windage to the right, or his left foot to get the windage to the left. And I'll be just working on the elevation. And you try to get within 80 to 100 yards of those ducks and kaboom, pull the trigger and see what happens. I just want to, it could take 3 or 4 days and we may never even pull the trigger, but I just want to try it. You know what I'm saying? Just to step back in time and feel that experience. I'm going to tell you right now, when 4 ounces of black powder and 20 ounces of shot hooked up and went out of that 1.5 inch barrel, I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't that. It pushed the boat backwards. It was, we just shot the water just to see what it'd do, and it was unfreaking believable. Just to see that cloud of black smoke roll out over that lake. So now I kind of want to go back and just try to do it with a duck. You know what I'm saying?
So you just shot it. You just shot it over there just to see what it would do. You didn't have any ducks in it.
There were ducks around, but they weren't. You've got to, everything's got to be right to get up on those ducks like that. That's why those guys in Chesapeake Bay and stuff back in the day, that's why they hunted them at night. And but even then, the water and everything had the light and the wind and the swells. Everything had to be perfect for them to really get those bags. And I asked them, I said, how many ducks do you kill with something like this? And and Ginger, the old guy, explained that. And we did this. We interviewed this guy, on Duck Feed Somewhere podcast. And but what he said is, where you go out with a shotgun shell, a 1 ounce Boss copper plated bismuth, and you expect to shoot a duck. He said, well, if you got 20 ounces, your goal is to shoot 20 ducks. You know what I'm saying? And that would be a good trigger pull. He said sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Sometimes it's fewer. And but that's a long cry from hundreds of ducks dead on the water at one time. Can you
imagine that lifestyle of going out in that boat and rowing that boat out in the Chesapeake Bay when it's colder than balls anyways, they didn't have the gear we have now. They had wool to wear, and their hands are just freaking blocks of ice. And then those lanterns they get, when you go to that waterfowl museum up there and you see the boat that they used, and those lanterns, did not work very well at all. And they'd pull that old gun back and that thing would go off, and sometimes it'd explode on the boat and all kinds of things would go wrong. And then pick all them ducks up, those canvasbacks, those redheads, those scup, whatever they get, and then to put them in a barrel and put them on a train to go to New York.
It was tough work, son. I mean, because you're right. I just think about how they were out there wearing, maybe take some grease or some lard and wax up their cotton or wax up their leather pants and get off in them boats was wet. I mean, they didn't maybe have wool if they were lucky, but they didn't have the advantages we have just in being warm and dry.
No, not at all.
That was some tough people right there, boy.
Yep, just scratching out a living. But during the even during the Depression time, a canvasback duck would bring $5. That was a lot of money in 1929. I'm telling you, a lot of money. And those guys, but they earned every bit of it. I mean, that's just. And then can you imagine the guy at the restaurant in Manhattan going down to the train station to pick up a barrel full, or I guess it was just an old barrel full of ducks that are coming from the Chesapeake Bay that had been shot the night before for naval fare. It just
Isn't that crazy?
I love American history, and that just stuff like that. Just how tough and hardy our ancestors were that did all that stuff.
Well, believe it or not, it wasn't just the Chesapeake Bay that was involved with all that market hunting.
No.
There were canvasback wars down in Texas, down in coastal Texas at the time, and that's where a lot of the modern day sport versus market hunter hit a fever pitch. And I actually hunted a club out in Utah that at one time was called the Chesapeake Bay Club, so that when they stamped way back pre-Migratory Bird Treaty Act, when they stamped their crates, their barrels full of canvasbacks going back to east to sell, it would read Chesapeake Bay so that hopefully they could get top dollar, because the Chesapeake Bay had created the IZOD standard of getting top dollar for their canvasback, and everywhere else was just trash stuff. So these folks out in Utah, these club members come up with the idea of naming their club, and they could stamp the club name on their Chesapeake Bay to get top dollar for their canvasbacks too.
Isn't the number one canvasback destination in Louisiana? Is it Lake Catahoula, or what's the lake over in Louisiana?
I think Catahoula Lake at one time overwintered 30% of the continental population of canvasback.
Yeah, and that is nuts. You know, we met one of your professors at Calgary at the airport a couple years ago.
Really?
Yeah, and I
wonder who that would have been.
I can't remember the guy's name. But
I think I might still have his contact in my phone. I'll have to look it up.
He taught you in college.
Maybe Rick Kaminsky.
Yes, Rick Kaminsky.
Yeah. He was a waterfowl ecologist there forever.
Yes, I've got his.
Was.
Yeah, I've got his information. Dr. Rick Kaminsky.
Well, congratulations! Yeah. You just got put in the waterfowl. Is it the waterfowl Hall of Fame, or is it the Mississippi
Mississippi Outdoor Hall of Fame? Mississippi Outdoor Hall of Fame, and it just blows my mind that somebody asked me when I got back, well, how you feel? I said, I feel exactly like I did a week and a year and a month before then. It just blows my mind that chasing down the path that God put me on would be recognized as anything more than just duck hunting. But I was proud and honored, and honestly, they give you a little plaque. And of course, I was traveling on the induction night, and I think the proudest moment of it all was my wife, who is not a public land speaker and public speaker, and my son, who is not, and his fiance. They all went up there and I told them, it's no big deal. I figured they would just mail it to me like my college diplomas. I don't know what I was doing on college graduation or grad school graduation day. I was probably fishing, and they mailed it to me, and I assumed that's what they would do. But my wife and kid and his fiance went up there to receive it, not knowing if they were going to be asked to speak or not. They kind of jotted down some notes, and they didn't have to get up and speak in front of nobody. It was a crowded room. Thank goodness. They'd have probably been petrified, but it was humbling. It was very humbling just to read what they had written that they were prepared to say on my behalf. And I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, I'm blessed to get to do this and to travel a lot and to hunt a lot. But, there are trade-offs. It's like, man, I can't even remember. Well, I mean, I know this. I'm gonna be at Ducks Unlimited Expo, during a engagement party for my son who's getting married. You miss things. It's not boy, somebody thinks to recognize you as a Mississippi Outdoor Hall of Famer, and you're freaking chasing ducks down in Argentina. You don't get to see a lot of that kind of stuff, and but I did carve out sure and certain about a 10-day period around this kid getting married, so I don't miss it, and I was very sure to point out to them when they first started talking seriously, just to lay out my calendar and tell them stuff that here's some days I've got I can't work around.
Yeah.
But man, it's a trade-off. But I don't, I've met so many people around the United States. So many of your listeners I've hunted with, throughout the country. And I mean, every one of us is just doing, it's just chasing down the trail that God put us on, that life put us on. Every single one of us is just doing the same freaking thing. So I just shrug it off. I mean, thanks very much for the recognition, but I'm really not doing anything differently. than what anybody's listening is doing, which is just the very best they can.
I think you're being pretty humble. I tell people all the time, I've been on 3 or 4 different podcasts this year, and they'll ask me, who's the most interesting person you have on your podcast? I've had that answer. I get that a lot too. And I say, Ramsey Russell is the most interesting person I know in the waterfowl world. Bar none. You've been hunting all over. You go everywhere. It's a neat deal, but it is a trade-off. And
it's a trade-off.
99% of the people that listen to our podcast and your podcast all say, man, I'd love to do what they do. And there's a lot of good times that go with it. And I wouldn't trade places with many of them, but they don't also see you're gone a lot. I'm not gone from home that much unless we're traveling. I mean, I don't have to, work-wise, we're out of town 4 or 5 weeks a year, but most of the time we're here. You're gone all the time. And you miss a lot of things in your life because of that. And people don't realize that. And it's a trade-off. And I think it's the same with a lot of people. I think everybody would probably like to be Denzel Washington, but there's probably a lot of times Denzel Washington's missed a lot of really cool things in his life, out traveling, filming, doing, and I'm just using him as an example. But my hat's off to you, Ramsey. You've done a hell of a job. You're a great ambassador for waterfowl. You've been everywhere, and it's going to be hard for anyone to replace you. And the world we live in now is completely different, and you got in at the right time doing what you've done.
Well, I tell you what, thank you, Jeff. First off, thank you very much for just saying that. It's but boy, you talk about the right time. I really agree with that. And I mean, things have changed so much just in the last 4 years, 5 years, the last 10 years, 20 years. And I wonder what the future does hold. I really do. I mean, my gosh, we got who'd have ever thunk that we got politicians talking about selling off public lands right now. What the heck? What the heck is that going to leave our grandkids if that goes to pass? You know what I'm saying? Who'd have ever thunk that? I mean, who'd have thought that? I voted for the man 3 times. Who'd have thought they were going to cut, migratory birds so close to the bone that we might not be able to go count ducks like we've been doing on the greatest country on earth. I mean, so and just since I have been chasing these ducks, so many rules have changed. So many places have changed. Argentina, they actually closed, the federal government closed their duck season entirely about 3 years ago. Fortunately, there were some provinces that said, screw that. I mean, can you imagine the federal government telling them, all right, we're closing the American duck season. Today's December 19th, we're closing the season coast to coast. And a couple of governors saying, right. We ain't closing shit.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they did. And then a handful of those outfitters got together and started counting ducks. And because the government don't do it. Mm-hmm. They started counting ducks and had to have some government representatives in the truck, make sure they weren't fabricating numbers, had to go run the numbers through some government agencies to make sure it wasn't no funny stuff going on. And they come to find out in one of the provinces down in Argentina, they've got over half the number of ducks than exist in the entire North American continent. Kind of hard to close duck season then, isn't it?
Yeah.
But but things have changed. I talk to people all the time. Say, man, I'd go to Argentina and hunt, but I can't bring ducks back to stuff. Well, I did it back in the day. You could stuff them, and now they just collect a bunch of dust. But what I tell people is, I don't care if it's duck hunting or fishing or golfing or whatever your thing is, man, don't wait till you get older to do it. If you want to do it, you better figure out a way to do it right freaking now while you can. But because what dawned on me is there's a lot of people that won't go to Argentina to kill ducks because they can't mount them. I kind of get that, but at the same time, if it closes, you're going to regret not going down there to hunt.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So by God, go. I mean, never, ever can I remember going to that you could bring ducks out of Australia, but I've been 3 or 4 times to hunt them and just to go down and just to experience, just to be among those locals in the Northern Territories and pass shooting magpie geese and whistling ducks and avoiding the buffalo wallets because a crocodile may be hiding to snatch you under with him. It was so interesting and so rewarding just to go and hunt and eat them and be among those people and to see it. That I didn't need to bring nothing back but the memories.
Right.
And I just encourage anybody listening, no matter what it is you want to do, you better get busy doing it because there's really no guarantee, as crazy as this world is right now, that it's going to be there in 5 or 10 or 20 years for you to do it.
Well, and like you said, you're going to reach a point in your life where you can't, and I'm not talking about you, I'm just talking about in general. Everybody's going to reach a point in their life where they have this dream vacation and then they just get too old to do it. Physically, they just cannot do what they wanted to do when they were 30 or 40 years old. So you just better do it right now. Your health is not a guarantee. Any of us could get in an accident on the way back to wherever tonight, and then you're looking at a completely different lifestyle tomorrow.
Your powers of enjoyment are greater right now, this minute, than they're ever going to be in your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, we're just going to get older and tireder, or life's going to happen, and we ain't going to be the man or woman we are today. So I just say go do it. And I'm getting at a point. I will say this really, really, boy, it cut close to home, man. You know, because kids are like that, right? And my oldest son getting married, and we're sitting there talking, and text message. Of course, I'm traveling. I say, you know, y'all need to get busy and have a grandkid. I would like to have the wherewithal to take that kid fishing.
Yeah. Like
I took you. Some of my fondest, most treasured memories in my entire 59 years of living are taking my kids hunting and fishing. I mean, just the memory, taking those little boys that had never caught a fish, that were my flesh and blood, out to brim fish. And me just being totally bored with everything at the time, until I got to experience catching that first fish through them.
Yeah.
Those are just some of my most treasured memories. And I said that to him. I said, man, you need to hurry up and have kids so we can go and do this stuff. To which he wrote back, you got to be home for that, Dad.
Oh, boy.
Oh, that hurt.
Wow.
That hurt, man. I'm like, note to self, I need to be home.
Oof.
You know what I'm saying? That hurt, man, but it's the truth. That's that trade-off.
That's a gut punch right there.
Yeah, but it's the truth. I mean, I missed a lot of that kid's life. I didn't miss all of it. We had a lot of great memories together, me and all my kids, but I missed. It's never enough. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's never. You always wish you spent just one more day or two more days or whatever you can with them. And you know this, because if you don't, you'll find out. Man, kids grow up, and not long after they get their driver's license, it gets real tough to get everybody together anymore, because they got their own little lives. And man, my kids are 23, 25, 27, and it's real hard to get everybody at the table now.
Yeah, I told a young man recently that just got out of high school. I asked him, I go, what do you want to do? He goes, well, I would like to do this, but my parents want to do this. I said, let me tell you something. I said, you need to go live the life that you want to live. I'm not talking bad about anybody's parents. But I go, your mom and dad did what they wanted to do in life. They didn't do what your grandparents wanted them to do. You got to find something that makes you happy. That doesn't mean don't take your parents' guidance, because that's not what I'm saying. But you got to find your zen, what makes you happy, because everybody's different. My dad loved training dogs. You couldn't pay me to train a dog. If you said, Jeff, I'll give you $20,000 a month to train dogs, buddy, I'd rather work at McDonald's than train dogs. I just not my cup of tea. And that's what I tell young people all the time. And you're right about the time, because you just don't have the time. When everybody gets older, it's hard to make everything work. The great equalizer, though, are grandkids, because you get a mulligan on where you screwed up your own kids. So what's good about that is you get to screw up somebody else's kids.
That's right. Have fun with them, give them a Red Bull, and send them back home.
That's right. I mean, I get in trouble every time I'm around my grandkids by either my wife or Aunt Jessie for doing or saying or giving them the wrong thing. But you know what? I'm not going to change. They'll keep getting on to me. I do it out of love. I don't do it to be bad.
That's right.
I mean, that's just part of it. But I would give my life for those kids. But that's the great do-over. Grandkids are the great equalizer. They get you, they give it back to you again. And I'm telling you right now, if you're an old person and you don't have grandkids, you're going to have a lot of, I feel sorry. I've got some friends of mine I've got a buddy of mine that's never been married, never had kids, been in a relationship with the same girl for 15 years, and is never going to have grandkids or kids. And I'm just thinking, man, you miss out on so much stuff. You probably got a lot of money.
You got time to do whatever you want.
Yeah. If you don't have a wife and kids, you got a lot of time and a lot of money.
Boy, that's right.
But what's Christmas going to look like when you're 70?
Miserable.
But you know, being happy and doing, I think we all have to live a purpose-driven life. You know what I'm saying? I think if you're passionate about it, if you're lucky enough to find something that excites you you're excited to get up to go to work, and you're happy. And yeah, man, I mean, life ain't a bed of roses. It's always going to be some thorns, but still, you got this purpose for getting up in the morning, and I think family and work gives people purpose.
It does, and you got to have something to do. Now, before we get off of here, I'm going to sound like a Democrat, Ramsey. Okay, you ready for this?
Yeah.
All right, you're gonna be at Ducks, right, in Memphis.
Yes.
You see that visor you're wearing right now?
Yeah.
I want you to bring me one of those. I want one of those.
I got one. If you don't mind wearing mossy oak, I'll bring you one.
No, but I would like to have one.
I've got one. I'll bring you one
All
for
right.
sure. Not many people wear visors, but I do.
I like visors, bald on head. But I'm telling you right now, I've been shaving my head more. My hair don't grow anymore. And I'm going to tell you, bald headed, whoo, sweat's different when you're bald headed. God almighty.
Nothing to soak it up.
Oh, shit runs like crazy. I'm telling you. You can't imagine. I mean, I've always had short hair. I've never had long hair. But when you're bald and you're outside, I worked yesterday outside of my yard doing some stuff there, or last 2 nights. God almighty. It just pours like somebody's throwing a bucket on you all the time. Trust me, Andy, I've seen how thin your hair is getting on top. You'll be down that road before long.
It's turning gray and turning loose.
Yep. And
I'm going to go throw one in the truck right now so I don't forget.
All right. Well, that's a long way away. But so you will be, are you going to any other shows you can tell people about?
I'm going to walk. I'm not exhibiting, but we're going to go. Dallas Safari Club is having a summer expo July 17 to 19. I think that's going to be kind of cool. It's right there in Grapevine, Texas.
At the Gaylord.
I think that's going to be. I mean, that's different. That's a little bit different than Duck Expo and Delta Waterfowl Expo, because it's everything instead of just ducks. And I was telling them the other day, I've exhibited at Dallas Safari Club for a long time. I'm not going to be able to exhibit there or their next convention just because of timing and schedule and whatnot. But I've never been an attendee. I've never been able to just walk the aisles and look and talk to people. So I'm thinking Anita and I are going to drive down and spend a night in Dallas and go to it. And then the Delta Waterfowl Expo in Oklahoma City this year. I love it. It's all duck hunting. And my gosh, I mean, everybody, everybody, I know everybody, we know everybody seeing social media. The duck hunting world's going to be there. Ain't going to be over at DUX. And I think those are just 2 great events. It's the right time of year. It's late July, early August. It's time to go put your hands on all the gear you've been thinking about, or meet the people you've been wanting to meet and talk to, and start getting your mind right, because 2-3 weeks later, boom, it's going to be dove season and teal season, and we're back in the throes of it all. So I really, we set up a booth to support those organizations, but I just like to mingle around and see folks and talk to people I only get to see in social media or podcast world, and just have a good time. So yeah, those are the shows I'll be at upcoming soon.
How were your seasons stateside?
Oh man, it was a good year. I can't complain. I had a really good time this year in the United States. Not to say I limited every day, but I saw a lot of cool stuff this year. I committed myself somewhere around the pandemic to hunt all 49 states, because back during that 1 to 2 year wonkiness of where you couldn't travel out, get on a plane and travel. I just need a new frontier. That's me. I need something. I need a mountain to climb. And I started going through some stuff. So man, I've hunted 30 something states. I need to hunt them all.
Yeah.
And I completed that this year. And along with it, why not hunt all these Canadian provinces too? So this year I hunted New Brunswick, which I'd never hunted. Got into the black ducks and some Canada geese real good. Hunted Prince Edward Island. Man, targeted the black ducks. Hunting just really, really, really cool area. And then dropped down and hunted ducks in West Virginia. Check the box there. I got ducks both days. And then finished up with some friends of mine, actually Brian and Ian of High and Dry. I call it the Virginia Oyster Tour. Son, we ate oysters like you ain't seen nobody eat oysters for 3 solid days. And I mean, gallons upon gallons of oysters did we eat. Bubba Gump a billion different ways, but we did shoot some black ducks. And so that was state number 49. State number 50 would be Hawaii. There's no duck hunting, so I've checked the box on the 50 states.
Did you say you went to Prince Edward Island?
Yes, that was amazing. Beautiful country.
I'm going to be there in 10 days, and that's one place. Well, I'm hoping I go there. We're going to go up into Canada, and that's where I want to go. I don't know if we'll go that far, but I sure like to see that area through there, that Bay of Fundy.
Well, if you're going up into Maine, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump from there. You'll go through Maine, and you'll go through Nova Scotia, which is a pretty cool state, totally different than Western Canada. And Prince Edward Island it was gorgeous, and beautiful.
Yeah, I don't know if
I
people
had a really cool time there.
We're going to be with 2 other couples, and I don't know what all they want to do. We're just going to sightsee and go places and look. But I'd sure like to go there. That's kind of on my bucket list, a place to go from. And it's only like 4 or 5 hours from our house up there. So
yeah,
I'm gonna do
not far at all. I had a good time.
I'm going to do some negotiating on the trip and see if I can't get it done.
I got faith in you.
Well, I'm a pretty good bullshitter, so if I can get it done. Well, Ramsey, we appreciate you being on here, and I will see you in a couple weeks, my friend. You take care. God bless you. And congratulations on your award. It's very well deserved, and couldn't think of a better person to get it.
That's exactly
Thank
right.
y'all. I appreciate y'all for having me. Thank y'all very much.
We'll see you soon, Ramsey.
All righty.
See
Bye-bye.
ya. God bless, my friend. Bye. Ramsey Russell, most interesting man in waterfowl. I could listen to him talk about eating and going to those places. That's more of interest to me, is the food and the adventure of going places.
Rather than the trigger time.
Yeah, I do not care about any of that at all, but just to see those places and the food he ate and those servants. I mean, how many people do you know that's been in a big compound place in Pakistan and got to, I mean, that's an incredible life right there. I'm telling you. I can honestly say I don't think I've ever been anywhere that had a slave. Have you?
No, but I tell you what, when we were in Costa Rica, I don't know how they do it, because the people that were there for breakfast were there for dinner, and they were well past dinner. So you're talking like 11 o'clock at night to 5 o'clock.
It's called being hungry.
5 o'clock in the morning.
That's
like they were there for absolutely anytime we went in a restaurant, we saw the same people, no matter if it was breakfast, lunch, or dinner.
So basically you're saying it's just like working at the big Honker Lodge.
Yeah, but like some of these places wouldn't close until 11, and then you got to be there for cleanup. And
I was being a smart aleck, but it's like they're all self-employed.
Like, I don't know where these people live, because the closest town, it might be 10 miles away, but it's a 45-minute drive.
Yeah.
And then they're there for coffee at 5 o'clock.
Those people have, we in America do not realize how good we have it. The worst person in America has opportunities that you can't go. I don't give a shit what you have. You can go to an ER if you're having a problem, and they have to treat you.
Right.
You know, they may not going to take your liver out right there, but they've got to see you if something's wrong. We are lucky and very blessed in our country. And when you go somewhere else, it does. But I feel like a peon when I talk to Ramsey. I do. I feel like I have absolutely accomplished nothing in life.
You're not in any Hall of Fame.
Well, no, and I never will be. But I'm not talking about that part. I'm just talking about when you talk about traveling.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you feel like you're well-versed, well-traveled.
Until I talk to him.
Yeah.
And then I feel like I'm just a Rand McNally map in the United States.
I've been to Arkansas.
Yeah, 2 times. Saw a guy with all his teeth once. Crazy deal. All right. Thank y'all for listening to us. God bless y'all. Have a great day.
Watch for deer.
Peace. Bye.
Go check out all of our sponsors. Go check out Mallard Bay, Mitchell Chevrolet, Stanfield Outfitters, Mossberg, Lucky Duck, Lucky Glass Podcast, Shin Gear, Dirty Duck Coffee, Dive Bomb Industries, Ducks Unlimited. Can't wait for their show. Pacific Calls, BHP25 is our promo code there, and Boss Shot Shells.